Okay, welcome everybody. Sorry for the delay. We have, was trying to provide a couple of pictures here to tell you a story, and I couldn't do it without Logan's help, so. All right, there's a lot to review tonight. I don't want to go into great detail with what we've talked about this last week, but I am going to highlight some of the key slides. So this was sort of a recap of the week. Asked you not to eat breakfast, see what that was like, not eat 3 hours before bedtime, and then try to eat more fruits and vegetables. So hopefully the fruits and vegetables is usually a stretch for people, but it's a good stretch because those are the foods that you heal from. I thought that was a pretty good slide for a chuckle.
I can do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's an easy one. I wanted to show you what a 91-year-old does when he hits one on the green.
Oh, nice. Put it on the green.
Not bad at 91, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my family. This was taken this summer. I want to tell you some stories about my kids and my family as we go. But the story I want to tell you tonight is about my oldest daughter, Kristen, and her family. So let me share with you two stories from Kristen's life. So this was about 16 years ago. She was, I think, a senior in high school. Here she is as a mother. Now, she's got 5 girls. This is her second daughter. When she found out she was pregnant, she was about 16 weeks, she found out by an ultrasound that this baby did not have a brain, did not have a forehead, was not going to survive. But they couldn't tell her how long that the baby would live. The times we just abort the children at this stage. Do you want to do that? She said, no. This is God's child, and I will be her mother for as long as she's here. So we anticipated this was going to be a challenge, and her name is Ellie. And when she was born, she had looked like a little snowman on the top of her head. It was 2 big globs of blood vessels, so she had to have plastic surgery to have that removed. Kristen was amazing through this, and I wanted to show you the video of her and her husband holding and kissing Ellie, but she lived for 40 days, and she spent most of the time in the NICU, and for the last week they sent her home with hospice. And the day that Ellie passed, we just happened to be at home at my parents' house, and she FaceTimed us and said, Ellie has just passed. She's holding her baby on her lap. And she said, we're not mourning her death. We're celebrating her life. And it was just a comfort to all of us. So the day she passed, she called the hospital to let the nurses know that little baby they'd cared for 3 weeks had passed. One of the nurses walked in her room, Ellie's room, where she stayed, looked outside, and saw a double rainbow. And that was kind of a sign that something special had happened. Well, we didn't know it at the time, but Kristen was about 3 weeks pregnant for the next baby. It's almost as if Ellie and Emery were passing each other. And that was the significance of the double rainbow, as well as the 40 days and 40 nights that she lived. Biblically, that's also significant. So it was a pretty special time, and again, it was hard for her, but we knew what to expect, and she just made it easier for all of us. This is a picture of her 4th child on the right. This is Essie. And this is her family here. This was just taken a few weeks ago. So Eden is the oldest. She's almost 8. And then Emery was the one that was conceived just as Ellie passed. And then this is Essie here, and this is Eve. And so this was in Florida this year, and you can see that Emery's a very ornery looking little girl, right? She's the clown in the family. Now I think if this works right, I can show you a video clip of Emery, or Essie, so you can get a little feel for what her personality's like. Now, I have to tell you, about 3 or 4 months before this video was taken, she was having a lot of pain in her legs and her knees, and she was crawling into her parents' bedroom and crying in the middle of the night. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They knew something was wrong, and it wasn't getting better. And so they finally took her to the doctors, and they sent her to an oncologist, thought she might have leukemia, did the blood work. It was not leukemia, but wasn't sure what it was. And I was going to show you the pictures of her hands and feet. The fingers and toes are just really swollen, look like sausages. Well, she was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And in this picture, you'll see her running with the painful knees. And you can see if you can see this. She's kind of limping as she goes. But she's fearless, right? She jumps on things and she climbs, and but it's heartbreaking to see her crawl up the steps and not be a normal kid. So I was there when my daughter had the first appointment with the rheumatologist. It was a virtual visit, and this is what bothers me about medicine. Your daughter has rheumatoid arthritis. We don't know the cause, but we know the treatment. We're going to start her on methotrexate, which is a chemotherapeutic drug. It's an anti-inflammatory with lots of side effects. I couldn't believe they were going to just not even think about what else could be happening and put her on methotrexate. Like, for how long? What are you doing to this 3-year-old? Well, this is what we do. And if this doesn't work after 6 weeks, we'll try something else, and insurance will pay for something more expensive. So these are actually shots that she has to have every week in her leg. And so they weren't really working that well. So she's had to have, under anesthesia, she's had to be put to sleep and have injections, steroid injections into her knees so she can cope with the pain and walk normally. So today was her second injection, and my daughter was very concerned because she didn't feel comfortable putting her daughter to sleep. So we'll show you what she did today here. This is after the shots.
How you doing, Scotty? You like those goldfish? You feel good? Oh, good. We did a good job for your procedure. You're so brave. Good.
It's heartbreaking, and it's very frustrating for me that is the treatment approach we have for a little 3-year-old. Where's this going to be in 10 years? Why is nobody looking at root causes? Could this be immunizations? Could this be a leaky gut? Could this be an allergy to something? Nobody wants to investigate that. And instead, we're putting her on drugs that will shorten her life and cause a lot of side effects. And she's a normal looking kid right now, and she's a trooper. But this is why I'm doing Fit for Life, because, and I haven't figured out how to help her with this. But we can't accept this. This is craziness. And I get really upset when this is just what we do. I'll tell you the story next week of my sister-in-law who died of COVID last week. 62 years old. My wife was her oldest, or her next sister. Held her hand for the last 2 hours of her life as she died. And my son got COVID last week, and he's doing okay, but my wife didn't wake up feeling very well today, so she got tested. And I asked her provider, I said, if she's positive, would you mind calling in some ivermectin for her? No, the FDA doesn't approve that. I really have a hard time with that because ivermectin works. And I have very, very strong feelings about the way we're being told to take care of COVID patients. I took care of them over the weekend. And if we follow what the FDA wants us to do, we're not doing them the justice they need. And the approach is wrong. And people are dying, vaccinated and unvaccinated, because we're not treating them with proven therapies. And it drives me crazy. So I'm going to tell you Becky's story next week. Okay, so let me try to back off on my emotions a little bit and get to some of the things we talked about this last week. So we talked about this cholesterol eclipse. And I know you read this or listened to this, but this is another big-time fail with mainstream medicine. There is no reason to take cholesterol medicine unless you have heart disease. You don't treat a number just because you have high cholesterol. Every provider will tell you to do that. And the reason I'm saying this with so much conviction is I've seen the data, I've seen the studies, and I've been taught this. And there are hundreds of physicians that know this, but almost no one else does. They're going to push this agenda because, I'm just going to say it, pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of money. And this is, these are the consequences of taking statins when you don't have known heart disease. Because it's a cholesterol blocker and because testosterone is made from cholesterol, it will lower your testosterone, man or a woman. When that happens, you will gain belly fat. Any man treated for prostate cancer gets fatter in his belly. When that happens, it'll increase your risk for diabetes, man or woman. When you have increased risk for diabetes, you have increased risk for heart disease. You're actually accelerating heart disease when you put somebody on a statin. But all we're showing you is how good these cholesterol levels are. There are also a lot of people have side effects with the statins. And I mentioned CoQ10 is the reason why you hurt with statins. It depletes CoQ10. It's in that on that table I gave you a couple weeks ago with medications and their effect on your nutritional status. So you need to supplement with CoQ10. Now, if you have heart disease, and we know you got blockages, you need to be on cholesterol medicines because the benefits outweigh the risks. But they don't protect you from heart disease. And why is that? The answer is because heart disease is not a cholesterol problem, it's an inflammatory problem. Somebody that's very obese is very inflamed. Somebody that's diabetic is inflamed. Those people are going to be at more risk for heart disease. And many research publications are littered with biases, funding pressures, or erroneously interpreted statistics. The last set of recommendations that said we got to lower the threshold for treating people doubles the number of Americans on cholesterol medicines. And the pharmaceutical companies are the ones that win. And they're the ones that fund these studies. So that's a problem, right? I mean, okay, so these chronic diseases are inflammatory diseases, and we've talked about inflammation when we talk about antioxidants. And those are inflammatory states. This is what an artery looks like when it gets inflamed. So when it's healthy, it looks like this. When it gets inflamed, you start to strip this lining in an artery. That's an inflamed, sick artery. And this happens very quickly, but it also heals very quickly. So this shows you what happens, how quickly this happens as you progress from left to right. And it only takes 8 hours to heal this, 8 hours of the right foods. But 8 hours of the wrong foods, you're going to damage the lining of your arteries. And when your arteries are damaged like this, high cholesterol levels can get deposited in here, and it's not the cholesterol, it's what your body does to the cholesterol. It's how your body responds to the cholesterol. Once cholesterol gets deposited in lining, that's not necessarily the problem. It's the inflammatory response when your body is very inflamed and it goes haywire, causing more buildup of plaque by, we call them monocytes and phagocytes, white blood cells that come in and try to gobble up these cholesterol deposits, and they turn into these big, fluffy, plaque-laden foam cells. And that's the atherosclerotic plaque. Okay. And then we also talked about the tennis court, right? And you know which body part can cover 2 tennis courts, right? So we talked about how important your gut is and how important the things you put in your gut is. If you want your gut to be healthy and to protect you from everything that you swallow, you need to do everything you can to keep your gut healthy.
How many Hippocrates know that back in 400?
Wise, right? All disease begins in the gut. 70% of your immune system lines your gut. Okay, that's how you were created. So that tells us there's a reason why your immune system is there. Tells us that that's where danger can enter, and we have to be aware of that. It's trying to protect you from absorbing toxins. We know the gut and the brain communicate. The depression can often be healed if you heal the gut. Your brain and your gut are wired together. Anxiety is another example of this. If you're somebody that doesn't like to speak in public, you can end up with a speech in public and have diarrhea that day, because your brain is really on overdrive and it's going to tell your gut to be on overdrive, and you end up with diarrhea. We also have more bacteria in our gut than we have cells. There's more bacteria that live in us than there are our own cells. But they're there for a reason. They're there to keep us healthy. So that goes back to interdependence, right? That's this third law of nature. Then we talked about celiac disease, which is epigenetic pressure. It started in 1975. We started to see that, and rates started to double. And why is that? Because of the quality, the way the grains have changed. That protein gluten that's in wheat is a different protein with different amounts of gluten than it had before. And our bodies have a hard time with that. Also, we're not breastfeeding as much as we used to. And we've changed the healthy bacteria in our gut because of things we put in our gut that stress it out. And the remedy is to address the root cause. Why aren't they addressing the root cause with SE? Why don't they look into this? Why don't they care? Well, there's no money in a healthy diet. Pharmaceutical company doesn't make any money in that. Can we really attack immunizations and vaccines when there's a lot of money being made and there's a lot of doctors being pushed to use these? Do you realize that children that are born premature, say 26 weeks old, in the NICU because they can't breathe, and they're there for 8 weeks? Okay, so now they go home at 34 weeks. They're not even supposed to be born for another 4 weeks. 38 weeks is when most children are born. Do you know what happens to these 34-week-old children when they leave the hospital? We load them up with 2-month immunizations, the vaccines that a 2-month-old gets. Craziness. I'm not saying that we shouldn't give vaccines. I haven't really drawn a firm conclusion on that, but I'm saying to do that to children at that age, that's overboard to me. Okay, and then we talked about foods that age us. So these are all things that cause inflammation, right? So we're trying to avoid these. If we don't avoid these, the leaky gut is the problem that can develop. And the leaky gut happens when the barrier breaks down, when the glue, that cement that holds the cells together, it breaks down, and little particles from your intestine can leak in and get into your blood. Now, if it's a single unit amino acid, no problem, but if it's a chain of 4 or 5 amino acids that gets in, when it goes to the liver says, "What's this? I don't know what this is. We've never seen this before. This may be a threat." So you have an inflammatory response to try to get rid of it. And when that happens over and over again, these inflammatory responses become autoimmune type of conditions and food allergies: irritable bowel, eczema, asthma, diarrhea, constipation, headaches. And then down here, you can't see this, but these are the thyroid, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. What else is there? Colitis and rheumatoid arthritis. That's why I'm wondering if Essie has some type of a problem with her gut. So what we're supposed to do is excrete toxins. We have 4 ways to get it out. It's pretty ingenious the way our bodies are made. 4 ways to get rid of bad things. We can sweat it out, we can urinate it out, we can breathe it out, or we can eliminate it. Do I need to turn the, oh, you're going to pull that down? Okay. So the point I'm making with that is it's good to sweat, right? Exercising and sweating is good. You obviously want to urinate. You want to have healthy, regular bowel movements. You don't want to be constipated. You want to get those bowel movements out as quick as they come and tell you it's time to empty. Okay, then we talked about ways that our liver, when our liver sees bad things, it says, let's get rid of it. If it's a fat-soluble toxin, we use this pathway, the phase 1 pathway. If it's a water-soluble toxin, we have a different pathway. And conjugation means we're going to stick that molecule with something else and put it in the feces so it can be eliminated. What I wanted to point out here is that for these reactions to occur, these are the nutrients that we need. Okay, so do you see the B vitamins? Folic acid is a B vitamin. Here's some more B vitamins. There's folic acid. B vitamins are really important for the health of your liver. And I told you last week to take a B complex every day. I get to check people when they come in the hospital, and everybody I check for folic acid, they're all deficient. Everybody's low, almost everybody. Nobody's low in B12, or virtually nobody, but everybody's low in folic acid. So you can take folic acid, but take a B complex and get everything. We talked about the importance of, I told you everybody should take some magnesium. Glutathione, if you want to see a really great video on the power of glutathione, this is the most powerful antioxidant the liver makes. If you want to see a really neat video on how you can reverse Parkinson's with glutathione, you Google Dr. Perlmutter and Agent Orange exposure. It's about a 3-minute video. Dr. Perlmutter. I think it's David Perlmutter. I don't know if it's E-A-R or P-E-R-L-M-U-T-T-E-R. And Agent Orange exposure. He takes a Vietnam vet who's been exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam with terrible Parkinson's. The guy can hardly turn, he can hardly walk, he can't talk. 30 minutes after they infuse glutathione, he walks and talks normally. That's the power of this. So guess what happened when I tried to introduce this infusion at my hospital? Like, okay, the body makes this, the liver makes it, so if we infuse it in a vein, there should be no problem. It's not going to react to anything. And you know what I was told? Well, there's no FDA-approved studies on that, so we're not going to approve that for you. Now, people will sell you a glutathione tablet, but it's very unstable. Even the spray that you use is unstable. So the best way to get it is let your liver make it or an IV infusion. So watch that video. You'll be impressed. He's an outside-the-box thinker.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know if there are any doctors or hospitals that will infuse somebody?
No, I mean, I don't know of anybody. Everything has to be approved by the hospital system. My hospital system we're part of 130 hospitals, and they won't let me give ivermectin in the hospital. So I can't do it. But I wanted to point out a couple other ones. So selenium is an essential trace element to make glutathione. I take selenium 3 times a week. A lot of us are low in selenium because there's not a lot of selenium in the soil around the Great Lakes region. So if you're eating your food from here, you probably ought to get some selenium. N-acetylcysteine. This is a powerful antioxidant that the liver makes, and when you overdose with Tylenol will kill your liver. So we give you intravenous N-acetylcysteine. Every emergency room has it. They all use it. My son told me today that he saw that the FDA is trying to ban the use or ban the sales of N-acetylcysteine in pharmacies now, because people are using it, they feel inappropriately for COVID. This has been around forever, and we use it in the hospital. One of my patients this weekend who had COVID had very high liver enzymes. He needed N-acetylcysteine, and the FDA is trying to ban the use of it. It's crazy. And my colleague today said the FDA doesn't approve it. I don't trust the FDA. I know I shouldn't be opinionated, but I'm really opinionated about some things. Okay, so how do we enhance the health of our gut? Well, this is a pretty simple slide. I'll just let you read it. So how do we heal the gut? Well, same kind of things. Fasting is a great way to heal your gut. Just let your liver rest. Let your pancreas rest. You don't always have to have food in it. And then you can detoxify it with these cruciferous vegetables. Those are the ones that have a lot of sulfur in them, like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale. They stink because of the sulfur, but they're really good for the liver. They help heal the gut. Probiotics have a place, and then we need to avoid the things that can be toxic to our liver and our gut. All right, so more on this. So colorful foods, supplements, and I've listed some of the supplements there. But most of this was an overlap from the slide I showed you last week. Then we need to eat to live, but too many of us live to eat, right? We're not thinking, this is not for me to necessarily feel good and just love this food. This is for me to heal my body so I don't hurt as much. I can move better, I can sleep better. So nature's foods help us heal because they have energy in them. That energy is made from the sun and it's stored in pigments. And when we eat that food and chew it well, it releases the energy and it helps our body be energized. And it's stored as antioxidants. So we can measure this in this oxygen radical absorbance capacity. And I wish I could just show you with a meter how easy that's done. But if we use packaged foods, they're dead foods. They have no energy in them. There's no, it's not energizing, it's oxidizing. And they're harder to digest. So this is how you heal. And pay attention to what's in the base. Because you really need to try to think, every time you eat, how am I going to get some vegetables at this meal? And it doesn't have to be a lot, but you should have at least one plate a day where you've got a pretty abundant, rich supply of vegetables. And then a little bit of whole grains, a little bit of beans, some nuts and seeds. This is my snack food. Pecans, cashews, almonds, and pumpkin seeds. And I mix this with a little bit of dried cherries, dark cherries, some apricots or pineapple. And it's really easy to eat a lot of this because it's sweet, right? So I don't mix a lot of these together, but this is a great snack that gets me through the afternoon. So the right vegetables, you can't really go wrong with vegetables. I just put this up here so you could say, oh gosh, I haven't thought of spinach or squash for a while, but yeah, let me see if I can find a recipe where I can eat that. Then we talked about the right fruits. And the right fruits, primarily, I put an asterisk by the berries family because they're low in sugar, high in antioxidants. We want to avoid canned and cooked, well, canned in particular, because they tend to be packed with sugar. We have to be careful with the dried fruit that I just showed you and fruit juices because they do have more sugar. They will raise your blood sugar. I would not eat those without some nuts and seeds, which will kind of plateau the blood sugar level so you're not as hungry. Okay, so this is a kind of a cool one that shows you the antioxidant properties in foods. So when it says, this is USDA data, the oxygen radical absorbance capacity or the antioxidant scores on these foods, you can see these are really rich in antioxidants. And as you look at the list, what two food groups do you see? Beans and berries, right? They are rich in antioxidants. So try to get those in your diet. Try to find a way to eat beans. Okay, and then the right proteins. You know, you have to have protein, but you don't have to have a lot of protein. Okay, so let me show you another picture here. How much do you need? Whoops. Well, how much protein do these animals eat? Because they have a lot of muscle, right? They don't have to eat a lot of protein. Their body will make the protein for them. So what are your requirements? Well, this was an exercise that hopefully you've gone through, you've calculated what your needs are. I've given you an example of someone who's 160 pounds, that they would need 40 to 80 milligrams or grams a day on average. Now, if you're an athlete and you're trying to build muscle, you might eat a little bit more. But a serious bodybuilder will tell you to eat 2 grams per pound of protein. And I've seen what this does to bodybuilders. Yes, they're big and muscular, but they're also doing other things to be big and muscular. And if you follow their health, they have a lot of heart disease and they have a lot of joint problems later. So I don't think it's worth that price to pay. So you don't need as much protein as you think you might. So we also need complex carbohydrates. If you just eat fish and salad, you're going to be like, I got to have something to stick to my bones, right? So you can have some complex carbohydrates, but these you have to be careful with, because if you're trying to lose weight, you got to track and follow this and keep your intake down. Then you have to have fats. This is where a lot of us think, oh, I can't eat fat, I'll get fat. No, this is going to keep you full. This is going to help you not feel hungry. Do not feel bad about eating these kind of fats and eating a decent amount of them. Okay, so this is the list of the healing foods again. And just another image to sear this into your mind. So there are a lot of athletes that think they need a lot of protein, but there are also some pretty amazing athletes who are vegetarian. And I'm not necessarily saying you got to be vegetarian, but if anybody you like to watch videos, watch some of his videos. This guy is crazy strong. I mean, he can do 5 chin-ups in that position with no expression on his face. I mean, it's fun watching him. Then we have Carl Lewis on the right, who was a gold medalist, and Patrick Bamuyan, the strongest man champion, reigned for 7 years as a vegetarian, or 6 years as a vegetarian. Huge muscle mass. Didn't have to eat a lot of animal protein to get that way. So we also want to eat the right amounts, and this was just an image to show you what different serving sizes look like, and you have to, if you got a really small hand or a really big hand, you got to remember, I got a really small hand, a really big hand. This is an average size hand that we're using as an estimate of serving sizes. Then I gave you a sample menu that might be something some of you would follow, but it's not about calories. What is it about? If you're trying to keep your weight down or lose weight, it's about carbs, right? So you need to track your carb intake. And there's 2 apps that I know of. One is MyFitnessPal. The other one is the Lose It app, which is the app that I have. So I'm just showing you one of my logs on MyFitnessPal. So for weight loss, you need to be about 25 to 75 grams a day. 50 grams for most people is ideal. But I had a woman who was at 35, that wasn't working for her. And when she got to 35 grams of carbs a day, the weight just melted off. I mean, it came off quick. So you have to figure out, if it's not working, then you're gonna have to change your approach a little bit. If you're doing the keto diet, it's less than 25 grams. And I'm not promoting the keto diet because there's too much muscle loss and there's too much lowering of the metabolic rate. So in my intake on this day, I had 51% of my calories from fat, 28 from carbs, 21 from protein. 45.8 grams of carbs. That was right on target. Okay, so let me show you what I ate. Oops. Planning your meals. Okay. I'm just giving you kind of an ideal here. keto diet, you'll lose muscle and you'll slow your metabolic rate. Okay, so this is what I had on that diet, or on that particular day. This is what my Lose It app looked like. I skipped breakfast. For lunch, I had a fourth of a cup of that I showed you. I just sort of snacked on it. I have this app allows you to kind of create a salad, a menu that if you put that in, it'll remember, okay, you're eating that all the time. So I had this salad with salad dressing. And then you can get this Premier Protein chocolate shake from Sam's Club and other places. I think it's got 2 grams of carbs in it. But I wanted protein. And then for dinner, I don't remember exactly what the recipe was, but it was cauliflower rice, 3 cups. Now, 3 cups of rice would be way too many carbs, but this was cauliflower. And then some Brussels sprouts, then an ounce, not much, an ounce of canned chicken, some carrots, a little bit of carrots, 2 teaspoons of canola oil, and a half a serving of teriyaki chicken. And when you add that all up, we go back, it is, I'm not sure if it showed me the total calories, but it shows you the breakdown of the macronutrients. These are, if you haven't used these before, they're pretty cool apps because you can walk into Applebee's and open it up and type in Applebee's in the app and say, oh, I'm having a chicken Cobb salad, and it's right there. And then you say, well, I had 3/4 of it. You enter that, and it puts everything in there that you need. Or if you've got something with a barcode scanner on, you scan it, and you say, I'm going to have 2 teaspoons of that, and it automatically counts it. So once you get used to it, it's really nice. And if you're a creature habit eating the same foods every day, it'll remember those, and you won't have to enter them. The challenge is if you make some unique casserole that you have to add all the ingredients, and then you have to decide what percentage of that you ate as a serving. Okay. So there's not a lot of carbs there, right? Where did I get my carbs in this meal? I got some of the carrots, a little bit of the fruit mix, very little in the cauliflower, and that's about it. But I was losing weight. Okay, yeah, it was 998 calories under budget. So my calorie budget that day for weight loss with my activity, it figured it up as 1,600 calories. So I was way under the budget. Okay. Okay, so weight loss and hormones, because this is the other piece of the puzzle that you have to remember. If you're not losing weight and you're keeping your calories, your grams of carbs between 25 and 50, then you have a hormonal imbalance. And if you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, or your thyroid is low, it's really working against you, and you have to address that. Okay, so just remember, insulin makes fat. We don't want insulin up. Cortisol, which is a stress hormone, turns on the fat-making machinery. It says, you're out in the woods now, really stressed. We don't know when you're going to eat again, so we're going to take fat, we're going to store it for you, so you can use this for energy in 3 or 4 days. So stress will cause you to make fat. Ghrelin is this hormone that makes your stomach growl. Ghrelin growl. It makes you hungry, okay? And when you start fasting, your stomach won't growl as much. It won't have that effect on you. Leptin makes your lips smack. That's how I remember it. Leptin and lips, and it makes you feel like it makes your lips close, so you're not hungry. And the more you fast, the more leptin you'll make, and the less hunger you'll have. The more full you'll feel. Your thyroid, we measured this with you guys. Your 3T3 ideally should be above 3.5. If you're below 3, you're clearly too low. And I measure this also with hospital patients, just kind of for fun. Everybody's low. I mean, it's funny because I'll look and the family doctors measured their TSH and, oh, they're fine. Their TSH is normal. and their free T3 is 1.5. It's like half of what it should be, or a fourth of what it should be, because nobody measures that. And then testosterone and estrogen, optimal levels help you lose weight. So men with prostate cancer, when I put them on testosterone, guess what happens to their belly weight? They lose it. Their cholesterol comes down, their energy goes up, they start getting muscles in their shoulders. Same thing with women who start taking estrogen. When they get the right amount of estrogen, they start losing some of that weight. But you can't take estrogen and snack on a pumpkin pie and, you know, have some crackers here and there and have 150 grams of carbs a day. You're not going to lose weight. But if you're eating low carb and you optimize your estrogen or testosterone, you will lose weight, I guarantee you. Okay, so these are just some weight loss tips. So the total carbs, 50 milligrams, should be grams, not milligrams. 50 grams a day is sort of the thing to shoot for. And if you measure your fasting insulin and it's below 6, it's below 5, I know you've lost weight and I know you've cut back on your carbs. If you tell me, I'm not eating any carbs, I'm just eating salads and vegetables and a couple of berries and some lean protein, I'm not eating any carbs, and your fasting insulin is 8, I know you're not telling me the truth. Because there's no way you can lie with an insulin level that's high. And usually when you come in with an insulin level of 3 or 4 or 5, first thing I'll do is say, how much weight have you lost? 20 pounds. Well, I knew that because your insulin is low. Okay, so this is sort of the concept of insulin. When you're snacking all day long, which is what we used to tell people, just snack a little bit so you're not hungry. Look what each little snack, even if it's not a lot, look what happens. An orange for breakfast, your blood sugar goes up, your insulin level goes up. And then you have maybe a half of a granola bar at 10 o'clock, your insulin level goes up. And then at lunch, you have a half of a sandwich, there's bread, your insulin level goes up. So you see all the time that your insulin level is up. And then you don't eat after dinner, it starts to drop, but then you have that snack before you go to bed and it goes back up again. Then you go to bed and it drops. But as you look at the sum total of the day, your insulin is high more than it's low. So on a day like this, you're going to be making fat because you're eating too much and you're eating the wrong foods. If you're eating fat and protein and vegetables, you're not going to see these spikes. So this is what it looks like with fasting. If you're fasting and you're only eating, say, from noon until 6, well, you'll probably have a few things to make your insulin level go up, but all the rest of the time your insulin level is low. And so you have decreased insulin and increased leptin, increased ghrelin saying, I'm not hungry, I'm sorry, yeah, your ghrelin level is going to be, in this particular image, your insulin's going to be low. Here we go. Decreased insulin, increased leptin, and decreased ghrelin is what should be on this slide. So you're more under the curve, that day you're going to be burning fat. Does that make sense? Because you're not eating. And when you are eating, you're eating the things we've talked about eating. And this is more on intermittent fasting. This is not on the handout because I added it later, but if you really want to understand the science behind intermittent fasting, get this book by Jason Fung. It's called The Obesity Code. It's really well written, and some of the slides I'm going to show you are from one of his talks that I listened to. And he recommends that you get to the point where you can go 18 to 36 hours on a fast. And some of you are like, there's no way. But you will be surprised how easy that becomes as you start doing this. Because your ghrelin level is going to be low, and your leptin level is going to be high, and insulin is going to be low, and you're just not going to be hungry. Okay, oops. Go back here. So this is what happens with The 4 days of fasting increases your metabolism. Did you realize that? If you don't eat for 4 days, your metabolism goes up. And this is where we're showing this. This was from the Journal of Clinical Nutrition. This is from Dr. Fung's, one of his presentations, one of the slides he shared. Your oxygen consumption goes up, that means you're burning fat. That's what VO2 is. Your resting energy expenditure, your resting metabolic rate on the 4th day is actually going up. And your weight is starting to come down. So 22 days of alternate fasting did not decrease the metabolic rate. If you do the Atkins diet or the low carb diet, it will decrease your metabolic rate because you're going to burn muscle and then you're going to slow your metabolism. Here's another one. The metabolism changes over 4 days of fasting. And what they're showing you is by the 4th day, look what you're burning a lot of. You're burning a lot of calories of these. I'm sorry, here's the fatty acids you're burning. You're making ketones, and you're increasing your level of one of the stress hormones that helps you burn fat. But look what happens to insulin after 4 days. The insulin level starts to drop. Blood sugar starts to drop. Now you're going to burn fat. Here's a really cool one too. Again, this is in an obesity journal. And they're looking at baseline, the beginning, day 1, day 14, day 69, and 70 days of not straight fasting, but intermittent fasting. So look at what happens to your fat-free mass, your muscle mass. This is what they're showing you. On day 1, you got 52, I don't know what the units are. Oh, kilograms, 52 kilograms of muscle in these subjects. And at the end of it, it was basically the same, 51.9 kilograms of muscle. They really didn't lose any muscle after 70 days of intermittent fasting. If you look at the keto diet, it would definitely be a loss of muscle mass. But here's the other really important point to make. Your fat-free mass at the beginning, 43 kilograms. By the end of this, your fat-free mass is 38 kilos. So that's about 12 pounds. It works. You burn fat, but not muscle. Okay, so I was just giving you some just different ways to look at this. An 18-hour fasting period, just a different way to kind of look at how you might do this. But after a while, if you do the same thing, your body kind of starts to figure it out, and you might not get the same metabolic response. So it's good to change it up a little bit. So this would be a 24-hour fasting protocol. And you're not fasting 24 hours every day. Here's a 24-hour fast here. There's a 24-hour, and there's a 24-hour. Then you could do one where maybe you're getting a 36-hour fast in. So this would be a 36-hour fast right here. You eat lunch on Tuesday, and you don't eat again until Thursday. But it's not 36 hours every time. The people that do this and have energy and keep their weight off, and they're not hungry, these are the kind of dietary patterns they follow. Okay. And that's another alternate example. Okay, so we talked about the right combination of foods. The combination of foods is first vegetables, then fruits or berries in particular. It's some healthy protein, some lean protein, a little bit of lean protein, some healthy fat, and maybe some beans, maybe a little bit of beans, which are starchy, carbs, maybe a little bit of grains, and nuts and seeds would be a good example, a good source of fats and protein. So just some general guidelines here on your eating. And I don't think I'm going to read this because you can read this. We already talked about it. Okay. This is in the journal, and this is an okay way to do this if you're counting calories, which I'm really not recommending that you worry about calories. And I'm not really recommending that you try to think about eating it every time. This is the old way of doing this. So I'm not really a fan of this if weight loss is your goal. If you're exercising a lot, then maybe that's okay. Okay, so the right times. I think it's intermittent fasting. All right, so this is kind of an old, this is like, these were the goals and objectives that I had for the class about 6 years ago until I learned about intermittent fasting. So probably not the best advice if you're trying to lose weight to eat 3 small meals and 2 snacks a day, right? You understand that because it's going to probably raise your insulin. It's going to keep you hungry and keep you wanting to nibble. And pretty soon you're trying to be really good, but you've had too many carbs. But I do think trying to eat nuts and seeds, chewing them well is a good idea because of the fat and the protein in them and the fiber. And I think cutting back on beef and dairy is probably a good, healthy dietary pattern to try to work on. I want you to try to increase your activity. Try to do it 5 days a week. It doesn't matter if it's 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour. I just want you to do it 5 days a week and try to push yourself every week to do a little bit more. Next week, we're going to talk about food labels. And this will be really fun because we'll give you examples. And this will be the applied nutrition. You'll start to understand everything we've talked about when you look at a food label. So you'll be a lot more confident when you pick up a food, knowing if it's something you should keep in your cart. So any questions? Yes?
Can a type 1 diabetic do intermittent fasting?
Yes, but you have to be kind of courageous and you have to be really aware of what's happening. So type 1 diabetics usually have long-acting insulin and a short-acting insulin, right? So the long-acting insulin keeps the sugar down, basically down through a 24-hour period. The short-acting responds to a meal. So if you're not eating, if you're fasting, you would not use a short-acting insulin. And you might even want to take your long-acting insulin and cut it in half. And if you feel like maybe you're dropping too low, then you need to check it and just be careful. Because the last thing any doctor wants, and more importantly any patient wants, who's diabetic, is for the sugar to go low, right? That's an awful, scary feeling. So I would always err on the side of caution. Like, just don't let yourself get to that point. Yes?
36-hour fast is just water for 36 hours?
Or tea, or whatever you want to drink. It should be non-caloric. But I don't want you to, if that's the way you're going to ask me the question, don't do it.
But you said the 36, it all increases your metabolism.
Yes.
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 But that, am I right? Metabolism, when it's increased, means you move more and can do more.
It means you burn more calories. You might not necessarily feel a lot of energy. Remember, when you first start doing this, your body is going to burn fat, and what does the fat cell store besides fat? It stores toxins. So you're going to release toxins. You're going to feel like crap. They call that the keto flu, right? Once you're into this for a couple weeks, you're not going to feel that way. You're just going to be like, well, I'm just not really that hungry. I can't believe it. But don't go from 18-hour fast to 36. Challenge yourself with a 24 or 30. There's no magic time here. But the more you do it, the easier you'll find that it is and the less hungry you'll be. Yes? Yeah.
So I think I heard you say, or maybe on the video, that if we did intermittent fasting this week, this past week, then maybe try one 24-hour, is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, you could. This is like everything else, this is self-selection. It's what you feel ready to do.
So if you do the 24 hours, then what would you do the rest of the week if you're not going to 24 hours?
I might do 18-hour for most of the week, just skip breakfast. And then, maybe at some point, you'd be like, well, that's enough. And then in a couple months, maybe you'll do a 24 and a couple of 18s, and then maybe another 24. You have to follow your comfort level. But if your goal is to really get the weight off, the more that you can do, the easier it'll be to lose the weight. Did you have a question?
I was just wondering, on the fasting, I've been doing that, and I think I've been feeling a lot more energy because of that.
Yes.
And I have lost some weight. But is it, can it have any detrimental side effects if you're an older individual?
So you've lost weight doing intermittent fasting, and you're worried that there's detrimental side effects from the weight loss. No, I don't think so. Especially if you stay active, you're going to maintain muscle. You don't want to lose muscle because you need your strength. And we're going to talk about how to gain muscle and strength training in a couple of weeks, and flexibility and cardio. But no, your body's going to lose the weight until you get to that set point that's healthy for you. You're not going to become emaciated if you keep going.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes?
Besides herbal tea, what about decaffeinated coffee?
It's okay. I'm okay with caffeinated coffee, yeah. I mean, the point with drinking is you want to stay hydrated, and you want to not have calories in it, especially sweets, sugar, right? That's the key.
On sorry.
Go ahead.
Bottled water that advertises that it includes electrolytes.
Uh-huh.
Does that have any benefit? All water.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, you're going to get electrolytes in your food. You'll get sodium and potassium in your food, so I don't know that, unless you're like exercising and sweating a lot and you're using that as a replacement, maybe there's a benefit there. Yes?
I had done intermittent fasting with a diet before, and I was so hungry all the time, I never adjusted.
Yeah.
But we weren't allowed to have fats or beans or nuts. Would that be what the problem would have been with that?
You mean when you were eating?
Yes.
Yes, probably, yeah. Yeah, so if any of you start this intermittent fasting, you can't do it. Just do the 18 hours, but make sure you get plenty of fat and fiber and, the vegetables. If you do 18 hours for a week, it's not gonna be hard by the end of the week. It shouldn't be. And then if you're not ready, don't jump into a 36-hour fast. Just try the 24-hour. And maybe you just then go right back to 18. But the point is, the more you do it, the easier it will get. And you just absolutely won't have the hunger, because the two hormones you're changing with not eating is ghrelin is going down and leptin is going up and insulin is going down. So your appetite will change. It has to change. Any other questions? Yes?
I'm sorry. With lunch meat, I know you don't recommend eating that. If you could find one that is nitrate-free, is that okay, like on occasion?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and you can have it sliced for you at the deli too. It's just that, like, the packaged bologna and some of those is probably not the best. Okay, any other questions?
Probiotics?
Uh-huh.
What would be a good brand on that?
So, good brand on probiotics would be Floragen,
What is it?
Floragen,
Floragen.
Floragen, or Florastor, Florastor. Yeah, those are probably the two best that I know of that are over the counter.
Make those?
Yes, they usually have one. They usually have Floragen at Mako's, but a lot of them have Florastor. With those, I say just get one and take it till it's gone, and then next time you get another bottle, get a different brand, because each brand has a different combination of bacteria, and you want to give your gut the full spectrum of bacteria. It'll figure out which ones it really needs. Okay, all right, well, thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.